you and your brother came across my radar. I had a meat eater assignment recently about improvements you can make to small properties to bring deer in. And so I interviewed you for that. I interviewed Mark Kenyon as well with the whole Back 40 project. And the response has been really good because there's so many people out there who are, have that place, that spot that might be 20 acres or 40 acres, 80 acres, something like that. And they're like, what can I do in the whitetail world to make it better? And, the obvious answer is food plots, but there's a lot of other stuff that you can do out there these days.
Oh yeah. I mean, we purchased our 80 a year and a half ago, and this is the first private land piece that we've ever owned. We had private access, and then we did public. But yeah, there's so many different management tools that we've gotten into. We had Matt Ross and then Alex Foster with the QDMA come out, and they basically taught us what we know right now, as well as other resources. But yeah, with even just 80 acres, there's so much that can be done.
Is that 80 in Nebraska or is it in Kansas?
No, yeah, northeast Kansas. Yep. About 2 hour drive from our home in Lincoln. So
why'd you go with Kansas versus Nebraska?
Kansas, so many reasons. I would honestly say we were looking in Nebraska, but really we were looking Iowa, Kansas, the surrounding states. Tag reasons, season dates, and just reasons like that. Like not having the rifle season over the rut like it is in Nebraska was a huge game changer. And then Kansas, obviously, just being a one deer state, that was a huge thing as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to hear you talk about that because everybody thinks there's like a perfect deer state out there. And, I mean, obviously there's, I just drew my Iowa tag and, everybody looks at Iowa like it's the best state and it's, it's ranked pretty high, but there's always, concessions to make. So you might have a state like Iowa where they limit the non-residents and they're really, the gun season's set up so you can carry some deer over and, it just geographically it works out pretty well, just like Kansas as far as not having the winter kill, not having tons of predators, but you might have very little public land to work with or very little traditional deer cover in the grand scope of the overall state to work with. And so there's always something there. So a lot of those factors come in when you're looking for land.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Kansas, we pay a non-resident fee. We have one landowner tag, but of course there's two of us with me and Nate. So one of us is paying that $550 for a tag. I know Spencer Newhart just put out he did in March, but Meat Eater just shared it again, like the best DIY states, and Nebraska's on that list just because of tag price and just public land too. So yeah, there's all different reasons to love a state.
Yeah, Nebraska is, that's a state I talk about a lot. It's one of my favorite states to hunt, but I would definitely say the secret's out on Nebraska these days.
Yeah, especially the sandhills too out west. You just can't beat them. We've gone out there 2 or 3 years, gotten into mature deer every time. So
yeah, that opportunity out there it's just so cool. And I got a buddy who I hunt with a lot. And, we either go on bow hunting trips or we go on bird hunting trips because, if you go tent camp, which we usually do, then you don't want to bring dogs. You can't leave your dogs in a tent. Well, he just bought a little travel trailer. And the first trip we talked about, we're like, man, we can head to the sandhills now and spot and stalk muleys in the mornings and the evenings. Then we can take the dogs out for prairie chickens and sharptails in the middle of the day. And it sounds like, I think we're going to end up doing that because for guys like us, it sounds like about the closest thing to dying and going to heaven that you can get.
Yeah, Nebraska, living and growing up here, it's just like, I don't know, it's like the gateway to the West, but it's still a little Western and still it's got the Eastern side to it as well. Amazing turkey hunting, whitetails. It's the state to grow up in.
Mm-hmm. The turkey hunting is unreal, but the thing I like about, I don't know if I should say I like it. One thing I hear about Nebraska a lot when it comes to deer is, the way the rifle season is, there aren't any big deer. You're never going to see a Pope and Young buck on public land or something. And I'm like, I know part of that is people who just don't want non-residents there, but part of it has to be people who just really aren't getting out there and experiencing. Cause man, I've hunted a bunch of different parts of that state and I've never had a real problem running into a pretty decent buck on public land.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I mean, I've heard it from 1,000 people, but the private and public that we've hunted, we've gone into mature deer, and we don't do any management stuff even on the private. We just have access to it. So there's definitely a state to get in mature whitetails.
Yeah, there's quality there. Let's talk about that Kansas property then. What are you guys doing right now to make it better?
Right now, so we've got soybeans coming up. They're about almost knee high. Honestly, they're pretty far along. We've got Egyptian wheat boundary all along the property. So any onlookers, because the west half mile of our property is on a road, which it's not too busy, but I guess management wise, we are still doing a little TSI work, even though trees are full of leaves. We still cut down a couple trees, and mainly path cutting. We want to put those deer where our stands are going to be. So we're cutting past our rut stands, so they just get used to walking these same routes. We call our biggest buck this year, we call Freddie Krueger. He showed up last year on October 31st. He's just got crazy split brows, and we call it Freddie's corridor. We just cut it every single time we're down there, just so that those deer just get used to walking it. So cutting paths has been a huge thing we're doing right now.
What is that path between? Why is he using it?
So it runs north-south on our property, but it's basically between bedding and the bean plot. So he's always there. Every day during the rut, we were getting pics, 14th, 15th November, even in December. So for some reason, he loved coming up south from the neighbors onto ours, and then just kept working it north. So
yeah. That I just did that as well on a little property I own in Wisconsin. It's only 30 acres, and so it has a little plot on there. And my little girls are going to hunt this year, so I'm kind of putting a little more TLC into it this year. But the thing that I found, food plots work, especially there because the food's really limited because we're up in the North Woods. But the trails, if you can get decent trails cut and maintain, not huge ones, just something a deer's going to like, and then you can stay away. Run those cameras on them. It's amazing how comfortable they get using them.
Yeah, really. We have some cell cams out, some Spartan cell cams, and we also have just regular Browning cameras out as well that we check cards every once in a while. But we try to be hands off. We've been down there usually twice, 3 times a month has been typical. But we are actually starting to build a shed on there. So there's been some dirt work going on. So a little more activity down there than we like right now, but we don't have all the say. My dad's got some say in it too. So
yeah. Well, this is the time of year to get a lot of that work done. I just last weekend, I'm trying to get smarter as I get older and hang stands and do a lot of scouting and a lot of that work and get it done in June or early July and not get so distracted by fishing that August comes and I go, holy balls, I got a bunch of stuff left to do, and it's spread it out a little bit. And, I think some people would look at that and go, well, man, what if we throw this buck off his pattern? I'm like, it's summer, man. Like he's going to come back around. Just get it done.
Yeah, it seems like whitetail hunting and just the structure of the seasons, there's always some reason not to be on the property. Like, February, we don't want to bump him so he sheds somewhere else, or like summer, he's not going to come back. But our deer just don't really summer on our 80. It's 70%, 80% timber. So they come back mid-September and stay through February, but then they summer on the neighbors. And that's getting into scouting a little bit. Scouting is basically texting our neighbors, and they've been really good. They text us first. Hey, have you seen Freddie's new set yet? No, we haven't gotten a single pic of him yet. So texting neighbors, staying in touch, because I know they have more deer summer on their ground and they move on to ours in the fall, which I like it that way, but it kind of stinks during the summer months.
Well, that's an interesting thing because, we talk about public land hunting on here so much. And, you go into, if you kind of live a lifestyle like I do, and a lot of the listeners, you show up at whatever state and it's new public land, you've never been there. So, you have no trail cameras, you have no history, you're scouting on the fly, you're using your e-scouting to kind of dictate where you're going. And it's like it's such a different thing than having a property and working on it and getting to know some of those deer. And I kind of go back and forth on it because I love, like you're talking about those bucks summering somewhere else. If you don't know what's going on there, you think, oh, the deer's gone. Now he shows up. And now you know where he is and you can start to learn like what this deer is doing. And there's something to be said about that can just teach you how to be a better hunter by learning, like, okay, these deer in this home range or this section, whatever you've got that they're working in, you can learn an awful lot about figuring out where they drop their antlers, where they're feeding in the summer, where they are in the fall. It's
Yeah,
pretty cool.
exactly. Yeah. Public versus private in that aspect. Yeah. Some big differences. And I mean, we know a deer's home range, so we know that these bucks aren't too far away, but yeah, they're not on ours right now. So,
You like those
yeah.
Spartan wireless
Yeah.
cameras?
Yeah. I mean, they've worked fantastic, especially during the rut, being able to stay out of there and getting pics sent on our phone. It's just, it's tough to beat.